Hi. Welcome. Can you say hello? Can you say hello? Hi. Okay, are you gonna sit with me? Go up. Oh boy. Ugh. What's up guys, it's Ella. Welcome back to my channel whether you're new here or not. Today we are going to be doing a beginner's guide to reading romance. This is Crosby. He has a lot of opinions, and if he's too noisy he will be evacuated. What? I'm doing something. I'm doing something. So in the past year or so, especially in the past few months, particularly because of book talk, I think a lot of people are getting back into reading books since middle school, for the first time since middle school, and a lot of people are especially getting back into reading romance books. So I figured this guide is specifically for people who have only read maybe like Colleen Hoover books and you read all the books that by her, or all the books you want to read by her, and you don't know where to go next. So I won't be talking much about Colleen Hoover in this video. If you want like a Colleen Hoover guide, I'll try to find a specific Colleen Hoover guide and link it down below. So won't be talking about her because I feel like a lot of people already know about her, and that's where a lot of people start when reading romance. So this is kind of where to go next after you've read the like Colleen Hoover books. So I will be talking about popular tropes in the romance book community. I will be talking about popular books that you'll just see mentioned a lot, but I won't be going too much into detail, and then I will be going into recommendations for beginner romance readers. So there's Crosby again. If you guys like this video, let me know and I will do one with thrillers. I'm really into reading thrillers right now, so maybe I can do like a beginner's guide to reading thrillers and fantasy, because when I was younger, and not younger, when I guess it was a couple years ago, so when I was younger, but in the past couple of years I was really big into fantasy. This is the first year that I haven't read a lot of fantasy. Anyway, that was a lot of explanation that you probably didn't need. This is just going to be like a beginner's guide to reading romance, and I hope you enjoy. So let's get into it. I have all of my notes on my phone. I've been working on this video for some time, so if you see me like looking down at my phone, that would be why. I hope that doesn't bother you. I'll try not to look at it too much. Okay, so first we're going to talk about popular book tropes in romance books. So one of the most popular book tropes in romance books is grumpy sunshine. This trope, first of all, if you don't know what a trope is, it's just like specific features of a book, typically a romance book, but I know that there's a lot of fantasy tropes and stuff like that too. But it is just a feature of a book that is hyper specific, and you can filter what kinds of books you want to read. If there's like something you find in one book that you like, oh, these two characters only have one hotel room and they have to share a bed. That's called the one bed trope, which I might talk about in a minute. I don't totally remember what tropes I've written down. So you can then like look up YouTube videos or book talks or like blog posts about like one bed trope recommendations, and you can find a lot of other books with that trope. So that's what a trope is. I hope I explained that well enough. The grumpy sunshine trope is pretty self-explanatory. One character, typically the guy, is grumpy and cut off from the world and, you know, stern. And the girl, typically the girl, but there are some reverse grumpy sunshine books where the guy's sunshine, I don't know. Anyway, the sunshine character is bubbly and happy and kind of counteracts the grumpiness of the grumpy character. It's super popular. A lot of people really enjoy that trope. Some popular ones off the top of my head are The Spanish Love Deception, Things We Never Got Over, The Wall of Winnipegamy by Mariana Zapata. Those are the ones I can think of right now, but I will talk more about some later in the video. So that is that trope. The next trope is similar, and that's enemies to lovers. Enemies to lovers in romance is a little bit controversial just because, are they really enemies? Enemies to lovers is a trope that stemmed from fantasy books when the two main characters would be like, one of them would be trying to kill the other, like that kind of enemies. Enemies to lovers in like mainstream, like contemporary romance typically just means they had a bad interaction at work, or they met once, got off on the wrong foot, and now they hate each other. They're not actually legitimate enemies. So, just putting that out there, but it's pretty self-explanatory again, I think. Enemies to lovers, they started as enemies, typically they become like friends or like allies in the middle, and then they end as lovers. I don't know how else to explain that. Okay, so one that's really big right now is childhood friends to lovers in general, but specifically childhood friends to lovers. A popular example of this would be Love in Other Words, which I will talk about in depth later in this video. So childhood friends to lovers, when they're children, they were like best friends. Usually they fall out of touch, something happens and they don't have communication anymore, and they reunite a decade or so years later. Again, Love in Other Words, It Happened One Summer. Those are the two big ones right now. I've read some other ones. I recently read Eleanor and Grey by Britney C. Cherry. That one has that trope in it. I think I'm gonna make a whole video for childhood friends to lovers pretty soon, but that's that. So then we have slow burn, and usually, like, Mariana Zapata is the queen of slow burn. Her books are ridiculously slow burn. It typically means that the two characters don't acknowledge their feeling. Like, you watch the two characters' feelings build up and build up and build up for each other, but they don't acknowledge their feelings for each other until 2/3 of the way through the book at least. That's not necessarily a trope I would recommend for new romance readers because it requires a lot of patience. And I mean, if it sounds like something you'd enjoy, I will say, if you hate the third act breakup, or like within the last 100 pages when the two characters fight and like break up, if you hate that, slow burn might be for you, because a lot of times slow burn skips that because it takes the characters so long to get together in the first place. The next two tropes are just locations that books usually take place at. A popular book trope location is workplace romance. The Spanish Love Deception is a great example of this. Or small town romance. A great example of this is Book Lovers, and I will be talking about some of these books when we get to the actual book recommendations. So, super quick, popular books, currently trending books that you will see everywhere that I'm not going to talk in depth about in this video, but if you want to read like all the popular book talk, booktube, bookstagram, book social media posts, no. If you want to read all the popular books right now or all the trending books, these are some that you can read to be kind of caught up. I'm just going to read this list. I made it. Okay. I already said I'm not going to talk in depth about Colleen Hoover, but It Ends With Us is the #1. I mean, it's been like the #1 bestseller for months now, largely because of book talk. And Colleen herself acknowledges that like book talk has been such an amazing thing for her. So, It Ends With Us. Definitely a must. As a book I already mentioned is The Spanish Love Deception. This book is workplace, grumpy sunshine, and fake dating. That's another popular trope that I forgot to mention, fake dating. And it's relatively slow burn, but not too slow burn. These two I have. Beach Read and Book Lovers. The reason they're both Emily Henry's, and the reason that I say these two, I will not be talking about these two, even though Beach Read is my favorite romance book of all time. If you know me personally, I've definitely bought you a copy of Beach Read and made you read the book, probably. So these are two Emily Henry books. She has a third book that I will be talking about in the recommendations section of the video, but these two are very popular. This one was just released in May, and this is her debut that was released in 2020, I believe. Yeah, something like that. Both very popular. I highly recommend them both. It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This one, a lot of people really, really enjoy. I don't know how popular it is, but I did want to throw it in here because it's a book that I think you should read, like, to have the essentials. Tessa Bailey is definitely an author that a lot of people really, really love. So, It Happened One Summer. If you like Schitt's Creek, it's like inspired by, I think Alexis and Matt, it's inspired by Schitt's Creek. So, strongly recommend It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. Someone currently has my copy, which is why I'm not holding it up. The next is a series that I have not read, and that's the Twisted Love series, the Twisted Game series by Anna Huang. This series is trending right now because the 4th book just came out like last month, in June, I think, something like that. So this book is a little bit like more angsty, and it's like an indie published romance. It is trending on TikTok though. A lot of people really love it. I haven't read it, so I can't talk much about it, but let me know if you do. The Addicted / Callaway Sisters series. This is a well, it's technically 2 series, but they are read intertwined. It is a 10-book series about 6 characters, 3 couples. The 3 girls are all sisters, and then their respective significant others. This series is really recommended if you like the show Friends. I read the first book and have not been motivated to read the rest, but I hear it gets a lot better like after the 3rd book, but you have to kind of power through to the 3rd book, and I don't know if that's something that I'm willing to do. So, this series, you'll see it everywhere. Addicted / Callaway Sisters series. You will have to look up the reading order for this book series. But yeah, a lot of people talk about it. A lot of people really enjoy it. All right, then we have Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. This book was trending a lot at the beginning of the year, and it's still, like, I see it all over my TikTok and all over my Instagram. It's a enemies to lovers, not really, Grumpy Sunshine more so, small town romance, and a lot of people really love it. So those are the books that I'm not going to go too in depth, and I don't necessarily recommend for beginner readers. Obviously, go for it, read whatever sounds interesting, but if you are overwhelmed by the amount of choices and don't really know what you'll like in romance, and you want to try different things and you don't really know where to start, or you've like picked up some romances and have trouble getting into them, here are my recommendations, and I'll tell you why I recommend them for beginner readers. Beginner romance readers specifically. Okay, so the first 2 have the same, I recommend them for the same reason. So it's People We Meet on Vacation. This is my mother's copy, okay? I don't know where mine is. I think I lent it to someone probably, but I don't treat my books like this. This is my mother's copy. I'm simply using it so I don't have to edit a picture in later in the video, okay? People We Meet on Vacation and Love in Other Words. So People We Meet on Vacation is by Emily Henry. This one's by Christina Lauren. These books, I recommend both of them because they have alternating chapters. So People We Meet on Vacation is about these 2 characters, Poppy and Alex. They were best friends in college, and every summer after college, they go on a trip together. So every other chapter is one of their trips since college. Then they have a falling out, and they don't talk for 2 years, and then Poppy is like, I want to do one final trip with Alex. I miss him. I want to kind of recover from what happened. And so every other chapter is them in the present day that the book is actually set in. So it goes present day flashback, present day flashback. I think that sort of formula, that's what I was looking for. I think that formula is very, very effective for beginner romance readers, especially because if you get bored with one storyline, like in one chapter and you're like, ugh, I don't want to read another chapter, like nothing's really happening right now, it jumps back to the past. Or if you don't really like a chapter in the past and you're like, I just want to know what's going to happen next, you have to, read that chapter, you want to see what's going to happen next in the present. So I think that's really effective. This book, Love in Other Words, is the same like formula. It's the past and then the present. This book is about Macy and Elliot. Macy's dad buys a lake house next to Elliot's family home when they're growing up, when they're really young. And Macy finds Elliot reading in her closet. They spark a friendship, and it goes back 10 summers ago, 9 summers ago, 8 summers ago, every other chapter. And then present day, where again, something happened and they haven't spoken for 10 years or something like that. They haven't spoken for a really long time, and they are rekindling, they run into each other at a coffee shop one day, and they're rekindling their friendship and eventually their relationship. So this is the ultimate childhood friends to lovers book, but again, I think it's really good for beginner romance readers because it's every other chapter. So if you don't want to read about them when they were kids, like if you read a chapter about them when they were kids, you're like, oh, that chapter was kind of boring. The next chapter is present day and you want to know what happens. So strongly recommend. Okay, so the next one is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I think Christina Lauren in general is a really good author for beginner romance readers. This book was actually the book that got me back into reading, or got me into reading adult romance in the first place. I think it came out in 2019, which I read this, I think I read it in like 2019. I saw it everywhere when it first came out. I was like, this looks great. This sounds really funny. It's about these two characters. It's about Olive and Ethan. It's been so long since I've read this book. It's about Olive and Ethan. Olive's sister is marrying Ethan's brother, and at the wedding, everybody eats at this seafood buffet except for Olive and Elliot because Olive's allergic to shellfish. Olive and Ethan. Because Olive's allergic to shellfish and Ethan doesn't do buffets. And everybody gets food poisoning except for Olive and Ethan. And they have to take their siblings' honeymoon together because they don't want it to go to waste. But Olive and Ethan hate each other. Like, it's enemies to lovers, but it's one of those books that they just kind of had a couple bad interactions, misunderstandings, and now they don't really like each other anymore. So that's this book. This book is really, really funny. I am going to be completely honest. I put this book on the list because Christina Lauren's writing is really easy to digest, but I don't totally remember what about this book made me want to continue reading romance. I just know that this book did, in fact, make me want to continue reading romance. And if it worked for me, it'll probably work for you too. That's kind of what I'm banking on, so that's that one. So the next one I have is Under One Roof by Ellie Hazelwood, or any of her STEMinist novellas. The reason that I recommend these is because they are 100 to like 120 to 150 pages. She just released them over, like, she released one in May, one in June, and one in July, and they're phenomenal. They are absolutely, like, I absolutely adore them, and I wish that they were longer books because I loved them so much. They are currently ebook only, but she is coming out with like a paperback version of all three, like the collection anthology, in January, I want to say. Anyway, I think these three books in general, but especially Under One Roof by Ellie Hazelwood, which was my personal favorite of the three, would be really good for someone who was just starting to read romance because they're short, get kind of straight to the point, and you can see a lot of times reading romance will take some patience, like a little bit of patience, because you're reading page after page waiting for the first like 150-ish pages, you're reading page after page waiting for the two main characters like to like bump elbows or something. You are waiting for the most minuscule interactions, and then the buildup is just so worth it. And I think that reading any novella, but especially these three, like these three are my favorite novellas, I think reading any novella will really help you to, like, beginner romance readers who are finding themselves struggling with being patient, kind of show them what the buildup will be and how worth it is when you finally get to like the good part, you know? So that's what these are. So then, going along with Ellie Hazelwood, The Love Hypothesis by Ellie Hazelwood is a really good book for beginner romance readers. This book is so popular. People love this book for very, very, very good reason. This book is so phenomenal. I absolutely love it, but it is just jam-packed with tropes and jam-packed with like cute moments, and like there's so many tropes. There's like fake dating, there's grumpy sunshine, there's workplace, there's like guy falls first, I think. Like there's just a lot, okay? But it's so good, and I really think that it gives you a good taste of like, I really liked this trope in this book, but I didn't like this trope in this book, and it's a really good book to read to find out what you are going to look for when you read romance novels in the future. So that's that one. Okay, so the next one isn't as popular, but I will sing its praises until it's a popular book, okay? And that's The Highland Fling by Megan Quinn. This book is so good. I read it on my Kindle, and then I had to buy the physical copy because I love it so much. Basically, this book is, again, grumpy sunshine. It's about this girl named Bonnie who is kind of stuck in a rut in her life, and so is her best friend slash roommate, and her best friend slash roommate says, hey, I answered this ad to go to the Scottish Highlands and babysit this coffee shop for this old couple who is going on a month-long vacation. Let's go. And so they get there, and what they don't realize is that the couple never told their incredibly grumpy, incredibly gorgeous son, Rowan? Yeah, Rowan, that they were leaving the coffee shop in the hands of two young American girls. So this book I recommend for beginner readers for a couple reasons. Number one, so funny. So funny. This book is one of the few romances that I really, really, really enjoyed even before the two main characters ever met. This book is hilarious, and for that reason I strongly recommend it. But for people who enjoy like the plot twist-ish, like emotional aspects of Colleen Hoover books, I think that this book, like when this book is light and like happy, way happier than a Colleen Hoover book ever is, but it's also really like emotional when it gets emotional. So strongly recommend. My camera's about to die. That's phenomenal. Okay, so the last book that I have to recommend is Set on You by Amy Leah. This book is similar to The Love Hypothesis. I think it starts very quickly, and like the romance starts very quickly. The two main characters meet very quickly, and it just keeps going at like it's very good, well-paced, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So this book is about a girl. She is a curvy fitness influencer named Crystal, and she's at the gym one day, has a frustrating interaction with a Chris Evans lookalike, and then they meet up again. They end up having another connection to each other too. So I really liked the curvy girl plus size representation in this book, and I also just really thought that the romance was well paced, and the third act breakup, I personally am a hater of the third act breakup, but the third act breakup, while frustrating, was not intolerable is the best way I can explain it. So strongly recommend this one for all romance readers. Oh, look who's back, it's Crosby. So that is my beginner's guide to reading romance. I hope that you all enjoyed. Do we hope they enjoyed? I hope you all enjoyed. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined, and I will see you when I see you. So will he. Bye guys.